Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, do I really want?
Adult is a hard word.
Hi, FUZE family. How are you
Gosh
doing?
almighty.
We're so glad to join with you tonight as we're kicking off. What's wrong, Clint?
We got the giggle buttons.
We're glad to be kicking off FUZE for the month of June,
Whoop, whoop.
and we're doing some new stuff a little bit different as we're easing into our slowly easing back into a normal life with how our student ministry is working. So if you missed the announcement or discussion of it, we are going to start meeting as a small group at our Lumberton FUZE location.
Bladen is still yet to be determined in time and date and whatnot.
Yeah, Bladen will be determined soon. You'll hear some more information about what they do moving forward in the future. But our Lumberton small group is going to be meeting at 5 p.m., and we're going to hang out. We're going to play games. We just played a really ridiculous version of Uno where you had to throw your cards across the room into a bucket.
Yeah,
it did. We were all terrible, and we ate pizza. It was a good time.
Except for Rosa, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But she had an advantage. She was closer than everybody else.
Yeah. So, but with that, we're going to get started with our small group time, or our discussion time and everything else. I'm just checking audio because I'm hearing.
All right.
We need a little more audio, Jordan. Probably about 30% more. So, yeah, across the board.
That full blast?
Huh?
Was that full blast?
That was full blast,
okay.
Yeah. We need a good bit more audio. But as we're getting started tonight, I'm going to go ahead, Clint.
Okay. Hi, guys. What's going on? We're going to be talking about the Good Samaritan tonight, which, you know, we've had some unfortunate events unfold the last, 2 weeks now? It's been 2 weeks already, or a week and a half, since George Floyd's death.
It was the 25th.
Yeah.
It was
so about a week and a half.
Memorial Day, right?
Yeah.
So
we're going to be talking about the Good Samaritan in light of that, with the who is your neighbor, like that kind of thing, like with the political, racial, all those different things, like why should we care who my neighbor is, you know? So to get started, I'm going to jump in. On one occasion, if you're in your Bibles, go to Luke 10:25 through 37 is where I'm going to be at most of the night. But on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? So this guy is an expert in law, but unlike our day, you know, where an expert in law is a lawyer, he was more than likely a biblical scholar, probably a Pharisee or somebody like that. And he's testing Jesus. How can he have eternal life? According to them, the Jewish law, you know, them being Jewish people, they were already blessed as long as they followed the law, right? So Jesus replied, what is written in the law? How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. When the expert said, love your neighbor as yourself, he quoted Leviticus 19:18. So in Leviticus it says, love your neighbor as yourself, right?
Yeah.
So he kind of had a picture of it. And him being a biblical scholar, they knew that the neighbor was a bigger term than the person that lived next to you. When we say neighbor, we think about who lives next to us, right? So like, Rosa, who's your neighbor? Like, do you know any of your neighbors? Kind of, sort of? Yeah. So you know your neighbor, but when you think neighbor, you think the person that lives next door or behind you or whatever, right?
Who's your neighbor?
I don't know, actually. Never met them.
I'm sorry. We're going to remove Clint from this discussion because he's not qualified, because he doesn't know who his neighbor. How do you not know who your neighbor is?
Never met him. I'm not out in the yard enough.
I thought you knew the dude that lived like right next to you.
His name's Billy.
That's terrible neighboring, Clint.
Well,
September, do you know your neighbor? All right. How many neighbors do you have? Okay. September, how many neighbors do you have? A lot? Okay. Do you know all of them? Okay, you know most of them. Okay.
he's doing better than me.
He's doing better than you.
See, when I was in college, I knew all of my neighbors because we were all in the same apartment complex. So, I knew all of them.
I have 5 neighbors, and one of them is my best friend.
Ma'am?
I have 5 neighbors, and one of them are my best friend.
That's nice. I miss
5
having
neighbors
my
and one
best
of them's
friend
your best friend? Okay.
I miss having my best friend live next door to me. That was
When
nice.
I was a kid, there was a kid right on the other side of my fence. His name was Chico Purcell.
That's a heck of a name.
Yeah.
Is he famous yet?
No.
Oh,
He
he missed out.
missed out, but Chico was on the other side of the fence from me, and we would play through the backyard, and
Yeah.
and then for whatever reason we actually would play through the fence. Like, we wouldn't even come into each other's yard.
Yeah.
We would slip toys through the fence, and I used to slide my Ninja Turtles.
You were
through the-
socially distancing.
We were
before.
socially distancing. as
Social
children.
distancing.
And but yeah, so knowing your neighbors aren't just who's beside you. But go ahead.
Yeah. So from the beginning, God made it so that the Jewish people were a blessing to the world and not just to each other. So when we think of being a neighbor to somebody, with the eyes of the Jewish people, we would think that it would be an internal blessing, right? But the Jewish people were meant to be a blessing to the world, to kind of overcome the darkness.
How many of y'all had dope neighbors? Your neighbors are just great. Okay, y'all don't sound enthusiastic. Okay. Candace Sampson knows her neighbors, and she loves her neighborhood. You have a nice neighborhood, Candace, from what I saw.
I wouldn't call that a neighborhood. There's 3 houses.
If you have a person on each side of your house, it's a neighborhood.
Okay, fair enough.
But that's I like my little bubble of neighborhood too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But that's what you're saying. The Jewish people were meant to be a blessing
To more than their neighborhood.
to more than a neighborhood. But that's the thing. Even moving into beyond that, though, as Christians, we should be a blessing to whatever situation we're put into. That if we're showing up, we should be a blessing to whoever we're beside or whoever we're dealing with or whoever's in our bubble in that time in that
Definitely.
region.
And I agree, and I'll get on that later on.
All right,
No, you're fine.
you
You're
listen,
fine.
did
You're
you
getting ahead of me, though. But in verse
It's 'cause
28...
I got short legs
Yes,
and
okay.
they move faster. I could
Okay.
outrun you, man.
Oh, okay.
I could outrun you.
After this.
Okay.
After that pizza set.
Stay tuned for the FUZE race of hefty men. Go.
Anyways, so in verse 28, Jesus goes, you have answered correctly. Do this and you will live. So Jesus wasn't saying that if you love your neighbor, you're going to have salvation, right? It's not. Salvation isn't earned. But it's more of a byproduct of being saved, of being a Christian. That if we are Christians, that we're going to be automatically loved. Or we're going to automatically love others. You know what I mean? So, you can't be hateful and be a Christian at the same time. It's just not how it's supposed to work. You know what I mean, y'all? Can I get a head nod? Head shake? No? Okay. So you can't hate the person that you live next to and claim to be a Christian. Or hate the person that is different than you and claim to be a Christian. It's not possible. I don't think. I mean, it could be possible.
It's
But-
possible, but it's not right. And
Your heart needs work.
your
for
heart
sure.
needs work. And you know, a lot of times people throw out the word hypocrite with that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I think there's a difference between being a hypocrite and being someone who's bad at being a Christian.
Right.
A hypocrite, if you take it back to like the actual history of the word, you know, hypocrite was actually an actor. Like he was a famous actor from back in the long day away, like a far,
Yeah.
far away. And so when people are saying you're a hypocrite, they're not just saying that you are a double-sided person. They're saying you're an actor, you're a pretender. So some people don't pretend; they're just really bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a big difference between being a hypocrite, being somebody that just pretends to be one way and act another, and versus someone who's actually trying to do the right thing, but they're just not good at it.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a difference too.
Mm-hmm. I got you. So, what I'm trying to say is, who's a Taylor Swift fan in here? And I got some handshakes.
September's like half a shake there.
Yeah, she doesn't shake
I
it
know
off.
like 4
She doesn't
songs.
shake it off.
Does that count?
No.
I remember you in college,
Yeah,
and you were a big Taylor Swift fan.
I was a big Taylor Swift fan.
Because I remember you, while you were still in college, you were hitting me up talking about how good Taylor Swift was, and I just looked at you like you were a
This was
doofus.
this was pre T Swizzle though. This was when she was
It
still
was-
in country music.
It was when
T-Swizzle.
the Feelin' 22 album. or-
Before that, it was before that.
was before
Feeling
that?
22 is when I kind of fell off the Taylor Swift
Because
bandwagon.
I just remember I remember having a conversation with you and Ethan Nunn, where like maybe it wasn't at the same time, but we both had this
Okay.
conversation where like they both write their own she writes her own music, sings her own songs, and you were selling me on the merits of Taylor
Yeah.
Swift.
She had merits back then, but I wouldn't
But not
go that
now?
far. I wouldn't go that far anymore.
Okay.
She sold out. But anyways,
But by the way, Candace and Danielle, you want to see this race? We're gonna make it happen. I just need sneakers and a belt, because if I race in my current attire conditions, I'm gonna break my ankle and
show your butt to the
show
world.
my butt cheeks. So you can't say that on the vertical page, Clint. Don't prompt me to such dialogue, sir. But back to Taylor Swift.
Anyways, all right.
You can't have me as a guest.
I know. September. Who is your favorite musician or whatever right now? Who's the person that you like best? I'll put you on the spot. Like your go-to musician. Okay. Well, who did you listen to on the way here? Nobody? Okay. Wow. All right. Well, Hector, who's your favorite musician at this point in time in your life?
Can you narrow it down to a genre?
Your pick.
Okay. I'm gonna just drop 5 on you.
Okay.
Judah and the Lion,
Okay.
Social Club,
Okay.
Misfits, Switchfoot, because they consistently just wave in and out of
Yeah.
good things. 21 Pilots, and KB.
Okay. We'll take 21 Pilots
Okay.
because I think everybody kind of knows who they are. Like
Okay.
this is a
Yeah,
good.
they're relatively popular.
Relatively.
You know.
You wouldn't go to a 21 Pilots concert or buy their merch if you didn't love them, right? Would you go to a concert of an artist that you didn't like buy their tickets? Maybe if somebody gave it to you.
Like them or their music?
Both. In general,
Because like sometimes artists can be like,
you're making this way harder
I'm
than
sorry,
it has
no,
to be.
I would not go to a concert if I didn't love their music.
Okay,
Clint.
right. But you buying their stuff and buying tickets to their thing, is that because you love their stuff, or do you love their stuff because you buy their merch?
I buy their stuff because I love
Right.
them. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Christianity. Like, you are Christian, therefore you love, right?
Yeah. Okay.
You don't love
I feel
because
you.
you don't love, therefore you're a Christian. You're a Christian, therefore you love. Know what I mean?
Yeah, but they should mirror each other.
They do marry each other, like, for sure. But anyways, you made that way
Candace,
harder than
I'm so sorry. I make life difficult. Corey Asbury is Candace Sampson's favorite.
Okay. I like Corey. He's the Reckless Love guy,
That's
right?
the yeah. I was about to say
that's
that's the Reckless Love dude. That's the only thing I know him from.
Yeah. But, like, Danielle's a huge Panthers fan, right?
Yeah.
So she buys a bunch of their stuff. But if she didn't, she wouldn't buy that stuff. It'd be kind of
Yeah.
dumb to buy stuff that you weren't into. But anyways, so in 29 he says, but he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" And then Jesus is like, "Okay, I'm just going to give you a parable," and this is what he says. In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead." And now I want you guys to imagine like the scariest like road that you can think of. For me, like literally, do you know the little alleyway between Drugs America and QFE where the CrossFit place?
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that is like the creepiest alleyway at night for me.
That tiny little thing in the mall parking lot?
Yeah, like I hate going through there. If I can, at any point in time, like I have to go through that area, I'll go around. And like,
why are you in the mall parking lot at night?
I mean, so I bank at BB&T.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I
like
never use that.
yeah,
I
so
use the
like,
downtown
yeah.
BB&T.
So like I avoid that like little stretch of road at all costs for some reason.
Okay.
Irrational fear for me.
All right.
But anyways, this is the kind of road that he was going down. Super dangerous, like more than likely going to get robbed, that kind of thing. And he's beaten, attacked, stripped of his clothes, everything just taken away. And here's what happens after this. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. So we have this guy laying in the road being attacked, probably laying there bleeding, right? And
they took his clothes.
They took his clothes. Like,
why do you take people's clothes when you beat them?
I guess because they couldn't go down to Walmart down there, so they have to like make their own clothes.
It's just weird.
Yeah. But anyways,
I've never like saw somebody like, man, I really want their stuff. Also, I'm going to take their clothes.
Right. And here's the thing, like, we're going to replace this with like the priest is going to be like Pastor Donnie, and then the Levite is going to be like Pastor DJ. Like two people that we see and are like, okay, they're like high up in the church. They should be leading their Christians, right? Well, they go and just go out of the way and don't do anything, right? Like, if we can kind of like comprehend that. So these were religious leaders that just said, hey, I don't want to mess with this guy. I don't want to get attacked myself. They didn't want to stand up for the guy, right? But then in verse 33, it says, but a Samaritan.
Before you hit the Samaritan, I want to throw one thing at you too. Like, there's been discussion on those other two that they might have had good reasons not to mess with them, because, for instance, like with the priest or the Levite, if they were going to the temple, if they touched any kind of blood, they were made unclean and they couldn't go to the temple. Or that it would be something that would like stop them from being able to ceremonially do their job.
Right.
And even if that is a legitimate excuse, they were still choosing the religious aspect over the people aspect.
Right.
And that's a hard thing, because like even if if you're choosing to do the right religious thing instead of actually helping somebody that needs it, that's kind of worthless.
Like, what's the point of having your religion if you're not willing to go out and help other people?
Right.
Like, yeah, I agree. So, do any of my three that are in here know who a Samaritan was to the Jewish people back then? Going once.
Have you ever heard the word Samaritan before?
And what kind of connotation is used for Samaritan nowadays?
You hear the word Samaritan at Christmas sometimes. You know why? Well, at Christmas, there's this thing called Samaritan's Purse. You know those shoe boxes that you actually put Christmas presents in and they get mailed to kids around the world? That's called Samaritan's Purse. And
yeah.
So that's one way we hear the word Samaritan a lot in our modern conversation.
Yeah. So, like, when we think of good like the Samaritans, we think of somebody that's going out of their way to help. Like, they call people that are good Samaritan if you stop on the side of the road and help somebody change a tire, or if they're broke down or whatever, right? But back then, Samaritans were looked down upon as like lower form than the Jewish people. Like, the worst people that they could be around was a Samaritan. You guys understand what I'm saying? Like, think of like somebody nowadays that nobody wants to be around, like an outcast or somebody who's just kind of.
Your lady's laughing at me.
Is she? That sounds about right. But somebody that's just kind of like a homeless person. People don't want to mess with homeless people, right? Like they're just kind of scared to deal with them. So like a Samaritan would be like that. No Jewish person wanted to mess with them. No
Do you know why?
Because they were half Jews and half something else. I know that much.
That's if you just want to leave it that simple. But at that point in time, they were people that had married outside of their race, and it was a weird cultural thing at that point in time where those people chose to basically merge with another culture instead of being God's culture. It wasn't just about ethnic race; it was about the culture they were adopting. And like legitimately, on this path from Jerusalem, to Jericho, like people would go out of their way to avoid even walking through where Samaritans would be, and which is why there's another story also in the Bible too, where Jesus actually talks to a Samaritan woman at a well, and she's surprised that Jesus even talks to her. So Samaritans were really used to being avoided by godly people or Jewish people in that time. Right.
So we have but a Samaritan, and that's the big deal here. Like this guy is, not supposed to be doing good stuff like this. The Jewish culture just abhors Samaritans for the reasons that he gave and the other reasons. So it says, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. So this guy sees him, and instead of like the other people, he walks over to him and starts helping him. So it'd be like, you have Pastor Donnie that just passed by, and then passed by, and then, I don't know, somebody that you wouldn't think, I don't know, who would be a good one for that? I hadn't even thought about that one.
Who would be your opposition?
Yeah.
I don't even know,
Who would be the person that you wouldn't think? Like it'd be like somebody that you despised coming to help. So like,
or somebody that despised you.
Yeah, like
that you despise.
Vice versa. Like your worst enemy in school or whatever, because we all have frenemies that we don't like. We act friendly, but we don't like them, and then they come to help.
We don't actually, as a culture and as people, don't like sitting there and say that person's my enemy, and stuff like. We don't do that. We shouldn't do that. Although sometimes our culture gets a light shown on it, and it looks like that's what we do.
Right.
But in that point in time, they literally said, as a people, that whole people are my enemy. And to have somebody that was supposed to be against you actually show up to help you is a big deal.
Right. So yeah. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him, bandaged his wounds.
Real quick, Sarah asked, where are we reading out of?
Luke 10.
Luke 10. What verses?
25 through 37.
Luke 10, 25 through 37.
Anyways, but he took pity on him. He went to him, bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expenses you may have. So this guy literally took this guy. It'd be like us coming up to somebody, putting him in our car, taking him to the hospital and say, hey, look, whatever it costs, I'm going to pay for. Right? Now, how many people would be willing to do that? I know I wouldn't. I could barely want to pay for my own hospital bills if I had to, let alone somebody else's. But it would be like...
I think an inn would be a little cheaper than a hospital.
But I mean, back then you couldn't just take him to the hospital,
No,
So he took this guy to an inn to recoup and just get better. And then not only did he pay 2 denarii, which I'm sure was a lot of money back then, he said, when I come back through, I'm going to reimburse you for whatever you spend on the rest of them as he gets better, because I'm sure, he probably had some broken bones and couldn't walk and was probably there for some time. Reimburse the innkeeper, like that's just mind-boggling to me. So the big thing is the Samaritan went beyond the minimum. He took a risk and said, hey, I'm going to take care of this guy. and that's what it matters. So like, you see, I saw a meme and it's just stuck with me like this whole week. It said Black Lives Matter is like the minimum.
Yeah, I saw that.
I love that meme. Like underneath it says Black lives are
worthy,
loved
valuable.
and valuable and all that stuff. And like that stuck with me. Like Black Lives Matter, it should be the minimum thing that we go to.
Yeah.
Like when that is the minimum, we should be going way above and beyond the different things that we come across. Our neighbors are people throughout the world. Like anybody we're sitting beside, like you said earlier, whether it's on a plane, in a classroom, on a car trip, a bus trip, whatever, sitting in a restaurant, they're our neighbors, and we should go above the minimum to help them out. You know what I mean? So, which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert of the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus told him, go and do likewise. So, here we see that Jesus is saying, hey, this guy, like, he's the epitome of what we should be doing as Christians. He told the expert of the law that the two that went before him were, like they were, like they might have been following the law, but did they love their neighbor as themselves, according to the law? And no, not really. So he pushed all the buttons. He talked about race, politics, religions, and then he flipped the question. The expert wanted to know, who is my neighbor? So how do I classify others to determine who is worthy of my love? And that's a big thing here. When we say, who is my neighbor, we're saying, who is worthy of my love at that time?
That's a great way to put that question of, like, instead of, like, just saying, who am I beside, or who's, in proximity, we're straight up saying, like, who actually deserves my time, my attention, my heart, those things.
It's like saying, I'm choosing who I'm going to love and who I'm going to take care of. Whereas Jesus is saying, who is the neighbor? Like, who is the neighbor that you need to be taking care of? And that takes away our choice out of the matter. Like, we don't get a choice in who we should be taking care of and loving and, all of that thing. Like, when we ask who is my neighbor, September could be laying on the side of the road, and of course I'm going to help September, right? Like, I know September, I love September, right? But if I saw some random guy laying on the side of the road, chances are good I'm not going to stop and help him,
Well, we have this mindset in our hearts of, like, this person's my people.
Right.
This person's not. Like, if I walk into, like, a store, I can identify who I know and who I claim. But there shouldn't be a distinction.
Right. Like, there's no choice involved in the matter is where this is coming at. And then Jesus does this. He doesn't just say, get away from me. I taught you what I'm doing, what should be the thing. He says, go and do likewise. And that's, we're called to do likewise, to go above the minimum of taking care of people. So in Matthew 5:41, it says, if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go. Do you guys understand that part? Like, the person says, hey, walk with me a mile, but they're going 4 or 5 miles. Go with them that distance.
Well, and one thing, too, like, I really, with that verse specifically, it doesn't even say if someone asks you to go.
Yeah.
It says if someone forces you to do.
Right.
Usually there are people in our lives that will make us do stuff we don't want to do, but we should go above and beyond to actually give more of ourselves than what they're actually making us do.
Right. I mean, that's like at work, you can't. When I was working before where I'm at now, it was kind of hard to want to give the extra service, because you don't want to do extra for things you don't like to do. But as Christians, we're called to glorify God in everything that we do, right? So we always are called to go that extra mile, go the 2 miles extra, whatever. One thing I love about where I work at now is one of their things is the second mile service. Like, their whole thing is like biblically, like, and I love that part.
Well, that's the thing, how you had mentioned the thing about the minimum.
Yeah.
Most people don't even give the minimum.
Right.
Most people give, like, whatever is the least required to not get let go of.
Right.
But we're called as Christians to, like, not only give what's asked of us or forced upon us, but to go beyond that.
Right. So, in Luke 8, Jesus heals a demon-possessed man, but in the process casts all of the demons into a herd of 2,000 pigs. Do you know what happens after that?
The pigs run off a cliff and die.
Yeah, and then what happens?
The people are angry that their pigs were
They're
killed.
mad. Mad. So, like, he financially ruins these people.
That's where that expression "when pigs fly" comes from.
Yeah, literally. But, like, Jesus ruined 2,000 pigs. I'm sure whoever owned them was like, man, I'm not ever going to recover from this. I'm not going to be able to financially recover. But at that point, he should have been more concerned about the demon-possessed man who's no longer possessed by demons than he should have been about his own financial recovery.
Bro, I don't know. Like, 2,000. Okay, realistically speaking, 2,000 pigs is probably a lifetime investment.
Yeah.
And you know, I am fairly confident that dude did not place that much value on the one crazy demon possessed guy that had been like causing drama.
Right.
Most of us, you know, realistically speaking, 2,000 pigs. Let's just say that it costs $100 a pig.
Yeah.
You know, 200. That's a lot of money.
Almost $250,000.
Yeah, most of us probably don't value half our family members.
Yeah.
2,000 pigs worth. Let alone a stranger that's possessed.
I love you more than 2,000 pigs.
Girl, you a 3,000 pig girl. Girl, you 3,000 pigs and a bag of pork rinds.
That's almost as funny as the Solomon series. We did the Song of Solomon series.
What do we do?
The goats coming down the mountain. Your hair's like a goat, like a herd of goats coming down the mountain or whatever. Yeah. But anyways, in Matthew 25, Jesus tells a parable. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to drink, or something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Yes, sir?
No, go ahead.
Oh. We're so worried about the temporary as humans. Like, we're so worried about what's going to get us through to tomorrow or the end of the week, you know? Whereas the eternal things, like the person's life that we're with, like, we should be worried about their soul, like where they're going when they die. That's where we should come into play at. It shouldn't be about, well, you just ruined my 2,000 pigs. How am I going to feed my family tomorrow? Whereas you should be thinking about that man that was demon-possessed who's not going to hell anymore. You know, like he'll be in heaven now that he's no longer possessed by demons. You know, that kind of thing. And I think that's where we get lost at a lot of the times is the finality of our situations, you know? You were going to say something. Go ahead.
Well, it's just like when you're talking about the whole Matthew 25 thing, they point out straight up that, by the way, your lady says don't ever call her a 2,000 pig girl.
Don't worry.
Mike Smith, I just want you to know you're like at least a 1,500 pig homie, just so you know. But in Matthew 25, when Jesus is talking about this, he straight up is saying, whatever you do to any of these people, you do to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you ignore me, if you ignore them, you're ignoring me. If you help them, you're helping me. And realistically, if we honestly believe Jesus died for us and that he gave us life,
right,
then however we treat other people is how we're actually treating him. And it doesn't matter if you actually know that person. It doesn't matter if you actually care about that person from a personal experience. None of that should matter. It really should be, do I love Jesus? Then I'm going to do this for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever we're doing to them, we do to Jesus. And if that can honestly be our heart,
right,
it should change everything.
Yeah, I agree. And you were saying that, and like the only thing that came to mind was when we did FUZE at Bill Sapp, and we had all those kids. You know, you really didn't know most of those kids. Like, I mean, we could have run into each other at Walmart, and I probably wouldn't have been able to pick them out in the crowd. And what we did there was love on them and show them, you know, that they're loved and feed them. But man, was it taxing emotionally and physically and all that stuff. And I think I miss that a lot because we were making an impact on some of those kids. Like, we keep hiring people, and I'm like, hey, like, I told you like a month ago that we hired a new guy. I was like, I can't place you, but I know you from somewhere. Whereas, I can't place you, but I know you from somewhere. And then finally figure out that they were from FUZE. You know, I've got 3 now that I had at FUZE when I was there. You know, and that's like wild to think about. Like, those kids, like, making a little bit of a difference. You know.
Well, it's like, and too, you know, doing Camp Grace forever. Like, and not only did we do Camp Grace with like summer camp, but like the Bible classes. They're kids who I didn't know them when they were coming up through camp. And, you know, I couldn't love them based on how I knew them. I had to love them based on Jesus.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, you know, forever later, like Miss Candace, like Miles's wife, was one of my camp kids. You know, I didn't know her then, that she would one day be part of our church.
Right.
I just had to love her then because of Jesus.
Right.
And, you know, there was a time I was teaching roughly, I want to say personally, I was teaching 1,500 kids a month. I guarantee I can't name all 1,500 of them. But you had to love them all like Jesus.
But what's crazy is I'll be like, yeah, my pastor's Hector, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, Mr. Hector used to teach my Bible class, blah, blah, something like that. I'm like, and it's like people I wouldn't even think, like, know you. Like, the complete antithesis of who you are.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh, yeah, you used to teach my Bible class.
Well, I was right before all the crazy happened and the world got shut down. I was at the fitness center here in Lumberton, like 1 o'clock in the morning in the hot tub. And because, you know, 1 o'clock in the morning is the right time for the hot tub at the gym. And a guy came up, he said, are you Mr. Hector? And, like, he was a younger dude, and I taught him in kindergarten. And he's, like, a junior at UNCP. And I taught him in kindergarten.
God, you're old.
I am old. But that was the thing, you know, the way I loved him when he was in kindergarten lasted all the way through college.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to leave you with 2 quotes. This one's by Dr. Mika Edmondson. And they say, you cannot love your neighbor while supporting or accepting systems that crush, exploit, and dehumanize them. You cannot love your neighbor while accepting less for them and their family than you do for your own. What does neighboring look like? So literally, like, one's tough right there. Like, I can't love my neighbor if I don't accept for them what I have to accept for me. You know, like, that quote's deep. And then the last one, this is out of the book, The Art of Neighboring by Brian Mavis.
We actually did our church did a small group.
Did they?
On The Art of Neighboring.
I must have missed that one.
Yep.
So in this life, we can do only a few things really well. I think it's a good idea to make certain that one of those things is what Jesus says is most important. And that's love God and love others. So my challenge for you guys, if you're online, or my 3 students that are in here, yep, let it be known for being people who are neighbors well. Let it be known for people.
That was a dub, not Wu-Tang.
Let it be known for being people who neighbor well. Right? So now we're going to transition into small group, guys. I value your answers, so please don't. If y'all want to slide up and come forward, you
Miss
can.
Sarah Rigsby also said I used to babysit her, so, you know, there's that.
Who, Candace?
No, Sarah.
Oh.
Like, Miss Sarah?
Uh-huh.
I babysat her.
Oh, you babysat her?
Yeah.
Wow, you are old. God. You guys, y'all can grab some chairs and come forward, but remember, social distance. And online, you guys can answer. Y'all been pretty decent about
all right,
coming
you guys
up
move
here.
up to the front row real quick. Just to the front row. Or do you want them front row, or do you want them, like, on stage?
They don't have to be on stage, but they can come closer so I can hear them. Because I'm
just
deaf.
Yell.
Yeah. Just be loud, because I'm deaf. So, you guys answer, we'll reply, you know, that kind of thing, like a normal small group. Online, Hector will read out good stuff that he reads, or funny stuff, or, you know, whatever he deems necessary. It's his choice. But let's get started. So have you ever thought of this parable as a provocative story before, or like an alarming story? Have y'all ever thought that before? Like a story that's kind of like scandalous? No? Okay.
We got no's across the board.
No's across the board.
Nobody, none of them thought that this was
Okay,
scandalous.
why-
Did you ever think it was scandalous?
When I was their age, I didn't think about it like that. But as I got older and understanding the story a little bit better, I kind of was like, okay, I get how this is kind of like, you know, scandalous or provocative, you know, because it would be like somebody who, like I said, like somebody who I despised coming to help me. Like, this is a heck of a like story plot for one of those teen dramas. Like, they're coming to my rescue or whatever, you know. So why not? Why didn't you think it was scandalous? You don't know?
Scandalous means something that I don't know. Define scandalous.
I don't know.
Scandalous.
Something that's like worth sipping the tea over. Do you know what I mean by sipping the tea?
Bro, that is not a
No,
proper
okay.
definition
All right.
of anything.
Uh-huh.
Okay, hold on, guys. We're going to the
Yeah,
dictionary.
go to the dictionary for scandalous.
Scandalous, adjective, causing general public outrage by a perceived offense against morality or law. So it's something that you find shocking or offensive. Also, typically as a result of someone's negligence or irresponsibility. So it's something that's shocking and offensive by someone's actions.
Right.
Roughly. Okay, scandalous.
I thought it was shocking that the priest or the Levite didn't help him.
Okay, that is true. That Rosa found it was shocking that the priest and the Levite did not help.
Right.
And that's one of the things, too. Have you ever had church people in your life that you thought you could depend on that proved that you could not depend on them?
Yep.
Yeah, that happens.
A lot.
Hey, don't be salty.
I'm not.
Salt and light, not salty and light.
So what caught you off guard about this parable?
That you kind of said that like the Samaritans are kind of like the outcasts, and I didn't really assume that they would get a lot of money, and the fact that he was able to pay for everything,
Mm-hmm.
and he was putting the other person before himself.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Rosa says that she was surprised that even though Samaritans were outcasts, that they would have the resources that they have and to be able to be as generous with them as
Right.
they were.
Anybody else?
Well, I think one of the things for me was that, you know, that he actually went above and beyond.
Yeah.
That
He didn't stop at the minimum.
He didn't stop. Not only did it stop at minimum, he like went way past. Because
Right.
like, if you see somebody wounded in the road, naked, you can't leave out the naked part. It
Right.
changes the story.
It does change the story.
It really does. Because if I find a person that's just wounded, I got you.
Right.
If you wounded and naked, that's awkward.
Like, I don't remember that story part of the story from when I was little, and then
But-
whenever it
because
They
you
probably
couldn't.
left it out.
You can't tell they're naked when you only learn from VeggieTales because cucumbers are already naked.
Now, they could have left him in his underwear, though. Like, I'm sure he had some kind of, like, underwear cloth on or
It
something
said
like
naked.
Okay.
It said naked.
All right.
But you know that's one of the things that you would see somebody that wounded, that beat up,
Yeah.
and not only bandage them, not only transport them, but
Yeah.
put them up and then pay for what comes next.
Yeah.
That's generosity above and beyond. That's the kind of reckless, relentless love that we don't see too often in like real life at all.
Yeah. I think so. My dad come and visit me this past week. He helped me put brakes on my car and do some other general maintenance. Anyways, we went to Firehouse to eat, and he's sitting facing out the glass, right? Well, there's this car that's backing in, and as they turn, I hear my dad go, "Oh my goodness," like just general shock. And my dad built tires for 35 years. He worked in Firestone for 35 years. So, like, yeah. Anyways, as they were backing up, he saw this huge bulge in the tire, right? Like, I'm talking like balloon on the side of their tire. And that's not normal. And these people
I
are,
had one of those recently.
yeah, these people are from like New Jersey or New York or like up north. And like the minimum for us was to say, hey, you have this problem with your tire, you need to go get it fixed, which is where we stopped at, you know? But like, had we been the reckless love like you're talking about, you know, we would have paid to get their new tire put on, or, yeah, you know, something like that. You know, that's the reckless kind of love that you're talking about. You know, like I just like looking back now, I'm like, man, I'm a bad neighbor. Like not doing anything for them other than saying, hey, your tire's screwed up, you need to go get it fixed. You know, so, anyways, any other? All right. So, in what ways does the parable address racism and politics? And why do you think Jesus did this?
To show that everyone's your neighbor.
Okay. How did he do that, though?
Well, for those who don't hear online, the answer that was given by our kids was to show that everyone is your neighbor.
I forget they're not mic'd. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm trying to cover your butt.
So, why do you think he did that, though? Crickets. Going once, going twice. Hector, do you have an answer?
Why do you think Jesus thought that was important to teach?
So that if anyone's stranded on the side of the road, that will go help them.
Would be
Okay.
important to teach now.
Yeah.
You know, they said it would be important to teach now, and with that, one of the main things I think that really understand how it regards racism and everything else is for us to clearly see that the categories we put on people don't change the fact that they're our neighbor,
Right.
and that it doesn't matter what category, classification, or anything else, you know, that we would label them as. Jesus says they're our neighbor. So above all else, what, you know, it doesn't matter what else they're called. They're our neighbor. They're our people, and what we do for them, we do for Jesus. And so I think, you know, if we can just change that mindset of it doesn't matter, you know, who they are or what they're doing. Okay, I'll put this out here. Miss Sarah said this, that her family was loved in a radical way yesterday because Brendan and Brandy actually came to fix the floor in their house and spent time living on their family. See, that's amazing. You know, that's not like saying, hey, your floor's jacked up. That's like saying, hey, your floor has a problem. Let's come and help you.
Right.
But I mean, that's the thing of Jesus showing us in racial terms that, you know, yes, those classifications do exist, but they don't change who's your neighbor and who's not.
Right. I agree. So Jesus flips the question. Instead of asking who my neighbor is, Jesus asks who is the neighbor. So what does this mean, and what does it mean, or what does it teach us? So what's the difference between who is my neighbor and who is the neighbor?
It changes how who they qualify as their neighbor and everyone as the neighbor.
He said it changes who they qualify as their neighbor and who as their neighbor. But I think the big determination that really goes with it is that the man had asked who is my neighbor to get out of who he had to help.
Yeah.
And Jesus asked the question who is the neighbor by stating who is actually doing it the way that God called you to do it. Who's actually doing it right.
Yeah. I like that, you know. Because when we ask who is my neighbor, it gives us out for us saying, well, I don't like them, so I'm not going to help them, you know. Whereas who is the neighbor says, hey, they're still my neighbor. I need to go radically love them.
Right.
So what does it mean to be what does it mean to be a neighbor according to this parable? Okay. Someone that'll help you in your time of distress or when you need help.
Someone who will help you no matter what. Okay. That's what he was going to say
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Too quick.
Yeah. You got to be quicker than that.
Almost got him.
But yeah, I like those answers. You know, like, not only that though, like, it's showing that we should love everybody, no matter who they are. You know, like, right now we're seeing, honestly, like, I see stuff beautiful happening. Like, you know, people are really acting, like, affecting change this time around. You know, how many times can you remember that somebody lost their life senselessly and then nothing changed? And now George Floyd's death has happened and people are actually starting to affect change. You know, like, I see it, you know, like, just with the people I talk to, there's a difference in the things that are happening with them. Like, their thought processes are changing. You know, like, white people are beginning to understand the difficulties that our African American communities are seeing. You know, and I think that's beautiful to me. Like, watching the race today, they stopped for a second. They stopped on the front stretch while they were doing their pace laps, and they showed a video and did a thing. And, like, before that, is, you know, NASCAR has always been a predominantly southern white sport, and now they're seeing this and they're trying to affect change in their sport as well. You know, like, I just think, like, all these things that are happening, and it's a step in the right direction, even though it come at a cost for somebody that you don't ever want to see again. You know, like,
Well, I mean, it really is like when all that stuff originally took place, I was wrecked.
Mhm.
Like, the first time I watched the video, I was just destroyed. And if you would have told me, hey, within 10 days the whole world's going to be flipped on its head and change is going to be happening, I wouldn't have really thought that was going to be
Right.
that case. I was like, this is just going to be another terrible thing that people forget about.
yeah,
But realistically, there, like you were saying, a lot of beautiful stuff has happened and changed, and just in a 10-day window.
right. So, what is a way in which you need to be a better neighbor?
It's like you mentioned with the tire thing. I'm not.
You can.
I'm not pooping on you. But like you mentioned that, you know, the above and beyond neighbor thing would have been to have, like, actually, you know, bought them a tire, done something more. Like with all of us, like, I think we can identify ways that we might have done the minimum, or maybe just above minimum, but above and beyond is a different thing. I've been blessed personally so much in the last, like, 2 weeks of people who have gone above and beyond for me and for my family, and it's crazy, just how much it's been a blessing to us.
Right.
But all right, so y'all, what are some ways that you think you can be better neighbors? Finding people you can help, donating money and stuff, doing stuff like that. Just practical ways you can do it. And back to the my neighbor thing, Sarah Rixby says that my makes it personal, to love fiercely and to help others no matter what. You know, my forces us to assume responsibility. So when we're saying who is the neighbor, who is my neighbor, it forces us to take part with that.
Right. Yeah, I like that. So, what's something practical you can do this week to be a neighbor to someone?
All right, so seriously, take a minute.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I missed one.
Oh, good.
What is something practical you can do this week to be a neighbor to someone you like?
Okay, think about it. Find one person in your mind that you like, and think of an actual way you can show being a better neighbor. So take a second, think about it. Who's somebody you like and somebody you can be a better neighbor to, or something you can do to be a neighbor to them. I'm gonna throw it out there. Like last night, it's like 11:30, late last night. Rosa, Danielle, and I are watching Parks and Recreation, and we're just like,
Good show.
yeah, it's okay.
It's better
good.
than The Office.
You can't
Hot
get
take.
off this stage, Clint.
Liar.
But we're watching TV, and it's like we start hearing all this noise in the kitchen, and like Danielle's like, "What are you doing, Bella?" And Bella's like, "I'm washing the dishes."
Oh,
We're like, "Why?" Because I just wanted to. And so she like just she's 11:30 at night. We're watching TV, and she's in there washing the dishes on her own. And then, like, she peeks her head in there a few minutes later. She's like, "Is it okay if I mop the floor?" And, like, I just literally got up and gave her $10. And I'm like, "God bless you, little child." But, like, that's the thing of, like,
That's how you make $10 right there, Rosa.
she'd rather watch Parks and Rec. But that was the thing is, like, Bella was, like, not just being a good kid. She was being a good neighbor.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, you guys, what are some ways you can be neighbors to the people you like?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your mom's birthday is coming up, and you wanted to help make her birthday special. You know, dude, that's a great way to be a good neighbor.
Mhm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you have an older neighbor that's inspired you, and you want to help her in practical ways. Okay. What'd you say?
Mm.
Around her house and stuff. Okay, that's awesome.
Rosa says she wants to wash the dishes so she can make $10.
Rose is a good neighbor. She really is.
I know she is.
I'm glad that she's my neighbor too. All right, what's your next question? Oh, go ahead. You can help mom put
Yeah.
away laundry. That would be dope.
All right, same question, but the kicker is somebody who frustrates you.
So, what can you do to be a neighbor to somebody who frustrates you? So the only, huh? So the two of you only see people that frustrate you at school. So nobody frustrates you that's not at school. All right. So think seriously. What are some ways you can bless some folks that frustrate you? I know for me that when people frustrate me, one of the hardest things is patience.
Yeah.
And like I struggle to be patient with people that frustrate me. So I think the above and the beyond, the real neighboring, would to be not just patient, but to be overly graceful
Mm-hmm.
with how I deal with people that frustrate me. To say that I'm going to be patient with how you respond, and I'm going to not just be angry just when you open your mouth,
Yeah.
but to actually be patient with them. So, do you guys have any ways you could be good neighbors to the people that frustrate you? Well, and that's the thing. It might be harder to figure that out, but the real thing that we should have taken is that the person that frustrates us is just as much, if not more, our neighbor than the people we like.
That's good.
So,
Mm.
chew on it, Clint.
Jesus
Chew
juke.
it. Chew it.
Uh,
With a juke ending.
it's okay. How can you help them out still?
Miss Sarah said actually ask them how they can pray for them.
Yeah. That's a solid way. Especially if they're into the praying thing. Sometimes you'll ask people if you can pray for them. They're just like, hey, go away. For me, gosh, just serve them better, I guess. I don't know. It's hard.
Well, honestly, that's the thing. That's why we need to see that
Yeah.
loving our neighbor, especially when our neighbor frustrates us, that's a supernatural, spirit-filled presence of Jesus in our life situation. Because other than that, you're faking it.
Yeah.
The only way we can truly love our neighbor when our neighbor frustrates us, or our neighbor is an enemy, or our neighbor is something else, is because Jesus
Mm-hmm.
is rolling in here. And honestly, I'll answer just to throw it at you. To one of the best ways you can love a neighbor that frustrates you is to know that whatever you're doing for them, you're doing for Jesus.
Mm.
And that honestly takes a lot of the grit off of the frustration.
Yeah. All right. Mm. That one's a kick in the gut.
It doesn't matter if you like them. The question is, do you love Jesus?
Right. Yeah. All right. So we're going to pray real quick. Anybody got prayer requests? Prayer requests? No? No?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
That when I get my bottom row of
Yeah, Rosa is going through the braces transition, and it's painful. She was pretty miserable last week.
Tylenol will be your friend for like however long you have those.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other prayer requests?
About 2 more years because the coronavirus slowed the whole process.
Yeah, coronavirus actually added like 3 to 4 months
Yeah.
to her braces process.
Anybody else? You
Seventh
got
grade
this.
is scary. I'm not even gonna lie.
Middle school in general. Are you at the high school? Are you at junior high? You're at Littlefield? Okay.
Junior high is rough too.
Yeah.
Like he's almost 7 foot, and then he looks down at you, and it's like he's yelling, but he's talking.
Yeah. He's just got one of those booming voices.
So we're gonna be praying for September and her comfort and her peace and going into 7th grade.
Middle school's just hard in general.
Man, middle school is so awkward and fast for me. Like looking back, middle school went quicker than any other time for me. High school seemed like it went on for a decade, and I didn't mind. I enjoyed high school, but middle school honestly felt like a blink.
Yeah.
Any other prayer requests?
Anybody online? Prayer requests? We should have been talking long enough they could do that.
Safety for Todd.
Okay.
For Todd Rigsby.
Yeah.
And, with his police job and everything else.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. And I know he's had a long weekend
Is he still in Hope County, Sarah?
Yeah.
He is? Okay.
Because I think he worked the memorial yesterday.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's pray real quick and then we'll be done, okay? Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing us to be together and just learn about you and how to love our neighbors, Lord, and that our neighbors are not just the people that we choose, it's the people that you've chosen for us it's all over the world, Lord, that they're our neighbor. I just pray for Rosa that you would make the pain from getting braces just minimum, Lord. I know you make things like this happen for reasons, Lord, but I just pray that she would be a light to her orthodontist and the orthodontist techs, that she would guide them closer to you, Lord. I pray the same for September, who says who's scared about going into 7th grade, that you would just use her and her personality and the light that she is, that you would guide her teachers and her classmates to be closer to you, Lord, and that you would keep her safe and feel loved, Lord. I pray for Mr. Todd right now specifically, and the cops in general that are out there that might not feel safe or feel like their profession is being attacked, Lord, that it's not the case, that they just want change, that things like George Floyd's death don't happen anymore, Lord. I just pray that you keep a protection around those police officers and sheriff's officers and everybody involved in the law enforcement, that you keep them safe and keep them vigilant, Lord, that you would allow them to change the game and keep things like this from happening, Lord. Just be with us as we go out, keep this week, through this week, keep us safe. Let us be a light for you to draw people closer to you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Good night, guys. As we're heading out, just a reminder, we will be doing a small group time at 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll be doing service online at 6.
Yeah.
Bye.
Peace out.